Yes. Alrighty. And the intro will be. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is John Stoutlinger with JCX Fishing. We're in a moment. We're going to be having one of my heroes, you might want to say.
Idols?
What's that?
Idols?
Idols, yeah. I met this man back in 2004 at the Bass Pro Shops in Auburn. Had the pleasure of going out with him out on Cougar Lake once or twice, and I had a great time. I'd like to also thank two companies that are helping put this episode on. One is It's Pro Fishing. Okay, they do the shirts that I'm wearing.
I'm wearing mine to work tomorrow.
Yeah, so they also do my tournament shirts and the neck gaiters, as well as Canine Fishing. Okay, the line I use, braid, fluorocarbon, 100% fluorocarbon. I just want to say thank you to those companies who are helping us get through this tournament season. Seasonings, yeah.
Seasonings.
So our guest tonight is, like I said, is one of my my heroes, idols growing up. He's a Bassmaster Classic winner. He's also a 5-time BASS winner. So if you, we're gonna put him in here right now. We don't have a video for him, but we do have an audio. Mr. Woo Daves, and we're adding him in right now. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah,
So,
I had a rough year with the COVID, but I got over that in February, and I'm back about 85-90% now. I feel like ready to do some fishing.
I hear you. And, you know, you and I were talking a little bit before the show, and you're getting ready to head up to New York.
Right. Well, we're going up to Plattsburgh and fish Champagne the following week. But I'm gonna be. I'll probably get up there about next Friday, and looking forward to hopefully catching some smallmouth. That's one of my favorite lakes to fish in the country. That's the bad thing. You got Thousand Islands and you got Champagne, so you got probably two of the best smallmouth fishers in the country. And I've been going up there since the 70s. And when we started up there, most everybody fished for largemouth. They didn't go out in the lake for smallmouth. And once they figured that out, you know, it just got a lot better even after that.
Yeah. And you've had a pretty good time in New York. I think 3 of your wins have come from New York, or two of your 5.
Two.
Yep.
2 on the river up there at Hudson, on the Hudson River. And actually, the first one I won, my son was real close to making the classic. He was in the top 5, and we went over and practiced, and I went down to Wappinger Creek and caught some nice fish, and I told him about it. We actually, when we fished Thousand Islands, we left there and went by there because we'd never been there. And he decided to fish up in the river. We found some smallmouth and a few largemouth up there. he went down there one day and didn't like it. So I said, well, I'll just go down there and fish and stay out of your way. And darn if I didn't win. And then the next year we went back and I went down there to practice. And there was about 50 boats in there. So I went back up the river to where I didn't see anybody and stayed up there and ended up winning. So that was, both of them were very special to me because I got a lot of friends in New York and met a lot of people up there over the years, and the fishing is just outstanding. Y'all are very lucky to have all the fisheries that you have with Oneida and the Finger Lakes. I mean, all of them are good, and the weather's usually pretty good. The wind can be a bear, but it's not like down here where you walk outside and you're wringing wet in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's what we had today. We had close to 100 today.
Okay. Yeah, we're only about 15 to 20 degrees cooler than you.
Right. And that makes it a lot nicer.
A little more bearable. Yes. So you've had just a little over 300 professional tournaments through BASS. How many years was that accumulated? Do you remember?
Well, when I fished the one, they're having one on Lake Norman in October that I'm gonna fish, and that'll give me 6 decades.
Oh wow! Holy cow!
I switched back and forth some from bass to FLW and back to bass, and now I'm trying to do a little bit of both, and it's pretty exciting. Everything's changed so much over the years, and it's a lot different from when I started the way it is now. And but it's still, I love to fish the tournaments.
Oh, sure.
Nothing like it.
Well, would you like to ask them?
My one and only question. So, of course, my famous question is, what is your favorite cookie?
I would have to say macadamia.
Oh, okay.
Macadamia or chocolate chip.
Oh, all right. Like the white chocolate macadamia?
Right.
Yeah, usually those go together. Yeah.
Gotta have the white chocolate in there, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, if you decide to stop on your way to Champlain, we're 10 minutes away from Cayuga.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fished on Cayuga a couple times over the years, and I think my son fished up there not long ago, and he had a top 5 in the bass tournament. That was pretty
Oh,
good.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Nice.
And, he's been doing mostly BFLs now, and
Okay.
he went to work for a guy when he got out of high school. Had a big lawn type business that did mostly commercial plants, and he bought the business a couple of years ago, so he has to kind of hang around locally. But he's won 2 Red Man regionals in the last 3 years, so that he made a little money doing that, and
Yeah.
trying to keep the business up and everything. It's a lot of, he just didn't feel like he could go out weeks at a time. But, like I say, y'all got the best, as far as probably the best fishing in the country, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I say the same thing.
And that's the problem down here where we live. We've got some smallmouth like in the river system and a few up in a couple of the lakes. Like Smith Mountain's got a few in it, but you don't see a lot of them caught. And when you can go up there and have a good day and catch 30 or 40 and 100 sometimes, it's really, I always laugh when I'll go down to Alabama or somewhere and I'll go out with somebody down there and they'll tell me, man, we had a good year on the smallmouth last year. I said, how many did you catch? He said, oh, we caught about 50 or 60. I said, well, that's a good half a day up north, you know, and they're talking about the whole season. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of them have started going up there now fishing on their vacations and stuff too. Uh, you know, since it's been on TV with Bass and FLW both, and the Major League Fishing having the shows and everything. It
Yeah.
shows us what a great fisher it is. It's people like to go up there. And it's nice if you go up there just to fish because you can normally get out of the wind somewhere or another. You know, go put your boat in on the side that the wind's blowing across from. Where in a tournament you have to put in, and then you're at the mercy of the wind if it's not blowing right. But if you're just up there pleasure fishing or something, you can. There's so many ramps all around the lake that you can usually get somewhere out of the wind, and you're about gonna catch fish anywhere you go up there.
Yes.
We have
a question for you from a couple of questions. Jeff Henderson wants to know, what's your best advice for a junior wanting to get started with tournaments?
Well, the best thing for a young kid to get started, is that what you asked?
Yes, sir.
Well, there's several routes to go. You want to get in a club, local bass club for one, but you don't want to get in one where you have to fish with the same person all the time. You want to get in one where you draw, and so you get to fish with different people, so you learn more that way, and then you can go with FLW or Bass as a non-boater for a couple of years and learn a lot about tournament fishing. And
Yes.
if you fish a couple of years, more than likely you're gonna have 90% good partners. You might get one once in a while just starting out that thinks he's ready, but he's not. But you learn the game, the ins and outs of it, and what it's all about, the techniques, and how different people fish and different people run the boat. Because you'll always be fishing with somebody different. And
yeah, that's a good point.
if you fish with the same person all the time, all he's gonna ever know is what you know, and all you're gonna ever know is what he knows. And there's just so much going on now. You can pick up on a lot of things, and you've got a lot of good YouTube videos you can study and get time on the water. There's several things. I don't advise any young kid to get a boat and just take off fishing, until he's rode a little bit and had some experience and everything. And yet also, I don't know how it is up there, but I'm sure y'all have high school fishing teams, I hope.
Yes, we do.
It's big down, it's getting bigger and bigger every year. And that's a good place to start because you're not driving the boat, but you're running the trolling motor and fishing, So,
correct.
That's another great place. Plus, you've got a good chance to get a college scholarship.
Well, that's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah. With the high school fishing, if they had that when I was in high school, I might have won even more.
Yeah. I mean, but it's just like I say, it's changed so much over the years with all the new techniques that have come out in the last 20 years or 25 years, really, and it's constantly changing and rotating around. It's hard just to do one thing all the time and be successful. And you
Yes.
gotta, there's so much. But the thing that they have over us is when we were young, we didn't have any videos and we didn't have a way to get the information, where now there's a video out on every type of fish there is, and you can watch it and you know how to rig it and how to fish it. Then you just got to go out and practice. And learn that.
Yeah, that's true. You mentioned the videos, and I have a video right here. It's a DVD. It says Structure School: Finding Hidden Hotspots with Woo Daves.
Yeah, I still get I get a lot of texts from my videos over the years, and because one thing when I made them, I tried to tell it like it was. I didn't just go out there and catch a bunch of fish, you know. So many of those videos back in the day of somebody like Van Dam would take a spinnerbait, go out there and catch 50 fish, but he didn't tell you why he was catching them or how, the differences in blades and stuff like that. And anybody can go to the lake when they're biting and catch a bunch of fish doing something. But I tried to, you know, tell exactly and show exactly how it worked and why it did it, and that's why I sold a lot of them back in the day. It was, and I really had a lot of. I still get comments to this day from people that still watch them, or that's how they learn to fish, watching them, or something like that. But, and like I say, now you can go on YouTube and see all my videos and all everybody else's, and a lot of the guys have started doing a lot better. I can remember tournaments back in the day when a guy would win it and say, "Yeah, I won it on a Foozy Doozy. You need to get some of them." And the guy that fished with him said he ain't never threw that lure all day. He was trying something else or something, you know. But you can't do that anymore because it's on TV and you're watching and you can see what they're doing. And it's really,
there's
it's not many secrets out there now.
No, and you know, I met you years ago, and talking to you really didn't. I mean, you may have kept secrets, you know, but you answered questions for people. If they ask you a question, you were sincere with them. And
yeah, that's what I always try to do, because I feel like that's, you know, I don't want to, like I say, I know quite a few tournaments was won with lures back in the day that didn't get mentioned.
Yes.
And that, you know, well, the fishing public may not know it, but all the guys that were fishing the tournaments knew what was going on. Well, if they tried to do that nowadays, you know, people would see it on TV, and it's just hard to do now. But most of these successful bass fishermen now, I mean, they may work for Zoom, but they probably got a Yamamoto Cinco in the boat, or they might work for Yamamoto and have a Zoom lizard or something. In other words, but if you read the articles they write, they caught it on their sponsors' bait and their sponsors this and that, and more than likely they probably caught it on something else.
Right.
You know, and some of them, like, you know, I had respect for some of the fishermen that had big money sponsors, but they got up and mentioned the bait that they caught them on that was somebody else's, you know. And that's taking a big leap when you do something like that. But again, it's harder to do now. And
Yeah, it is. There's so much live and stuff like that. We do have a comment for you. Okay.
let it rip.
All right.
It's from Rob, and he says, "I always enjoy Woo's tips. He was ahead of the curve fishing mostly spinning rods back in the day. What's he think of all the advanced electronics in fishing?"
About the electronics and fishing.
Yeah, what do you think about them now?
Well, I think they're getting out of hand.
Right? There's so much. I can't even keep up.
You know, you see a guy now with more money in electronics than another guy's got in his whole bass boat. And,
Exactly.
And it prices the average fisherman just can't afford to do that. And even the local tournament fishermen, most of them can't afford to put, $30,000-$40,000 worth of electronics on their boat. And I just think it's, that's just the way it's going. That's probably, it's not going to change. But I was thinking the other day with the guy looking through the orange thing, the flogger.
Right.
Up there, I was thinking, well, somebody's going to come out with an extendable pole that works automatic with a camera on it, and they're just going to run it down there and look around until they get the fish on camera and then cast over and catch it. And to me, that's not fishing.
Yeah. No. Very true.
You should probably patent that right now, Woo.
Yeah.
Get ahead of it.
I'm too old to mess with it. But I've thought about it. It would be, it would definitely be a good idea, and it would definitely sell. But again, that just adds more money to everything. And
oh yes,
I know I got a good friend that fishes, and he's got a Humminbird flasher on the front of his boat. He doesn't even have a depth finder on the back, and he's made 5 All-Americans.
Yep.
In the last 12 or 13 years. So,
okay.
But it's hard to go out and again compete money wise with somebody that's got a lot of money when it comes to that part.
Yes.
Mm.
And that's the big organizations are pushing that, which that's how they make their money, I guess, through the sponsors and stuff. But what gets me is you can't use a net, but you can use a flogger. Or you
right.
can use a Alabama rig, but you can use a live scope or something like that. And on one hand, they say, well, the net takes the slime off the fish, but on the other hand, the flogger takes the fish off the bed. And 6 of one, a half a dozen of the other. You either
right.
And I've netted many fish over the years and caught the same fish again, later on. And I didn't really think it hurt them, but I just thought some of the guys wanted it and some of the guys didn't want it. And I think Jerry McKinnis was a big, one of the bigger ones that kind of put the stop to the net rule. But with FLW, you can still use it.
Correct.
A lot of rules and things that are hard to keep up with sometimes. But I just wish they'd go back to, I can see the GPS getting you back and forth and not getting lost and stuff like that. Regular depth finders, but when they start using TVs and stuff like that, to me, that's carrying it too far.
It is. They're some of these graphs are as big as the first TV I owned. The 12-inch screen.
Oh, yeah. Well, you look at some of these guys got 3 of them on the front and 3 of them on the back, and you add that up money wise. 99% of the fishermen in the United States can't afford that.
Right.
Yes.
And sometimes it gets down to if you don't have a rich daddy, you're not going to be fishing on the bass circuit.
Yeah.
And that's terrible to me because when I started, anybody could make it. If any fisherman could go out and fish 6 tournaments and have a good shot at it.
Right. Grady has a question. He goes, what What do you believe is the most important fishing invention in the last 20 years?
In the last 20 years, probably there's been a lot of things have come out that have been good. You know, like new lure design, swim baits, but probably the down vision and the side vision and stuff like that on the electronics. And the trolling motors have gotten a lot better with the GPS, where you can hold in one spot. And it's hard to say any one would be really major, but you got lures like the whopper poppers and chatterbaits and drop shots and like I say, swim baits, Ned rigs. All that stuff has come out in the last 10 or 15 years, and it's all pretty important.
Yeah.
I think so, right?
All right. And Bob Simakowski has a question for you. Hey, Woo, when are you going to invite me over for some rabbit stew?
Did he say rabbit stew?
Yes, sir.
We have plenty of that.
Is that what you want to watch?
Yeah, you had a pretty.
We barbecue them, we fry them, and actually have made soup out of them before, kind of like a soup and a stew.
Yeah.
But that's what my other favorite thing to do is rabbit hunt, because I got 20 beagles, and
Okay.
I love to hear them when they take off after a rabbit. I mean, I don't shoot many myself because I'm down in the woods watching to see which one's leading when they come by and which one's getting the checks and stuff like that. And I don't want to tote them out, so I let the guys on the outside shoot them.
Yeah.
But
That's good. You have to let someone else have a chance every once in a while.
yeah, I come up there hunting about every year up at the marathon.
Okay. Nice.
That's probably close to you, isn't it?
Not too far. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We hunt. A friend of mine helps the Amish out up there, and they've got a bunch of farms, and we'll go up there and hunt with them, and they'll just get in the rabbits, you know, to help have some extra feed. And but I usually come up there every year about the 1st of November for the last 5 years.
Nice.
I'm definitely coming back this year.
Yeah. Now that you're a little healthier.
But, keep the questions coming.
Yes. Let's see. How did you get your start into becoming a professional fisherman? I know it's a little different now than when you started.
Well, we had local bass clubs in Virginia. We started the first bass club. Well, there was 2 clubs, Martinsville Bassmasters and Old Dominion Bassmasters. And we had about 90 members in each club. And it didn't take long once that started. Before we knew it, we had like 400 clubs just in Virginia.
Ooh,
wow.
Bass clubs. And of course, the Federation came about. And I fished some, won a couple of Virginia State Federation tournaments. And then they had a tournament on Bugs Island, which was my home lake, in 1975, and I fished that and was lucky to win. And kind of evolved from there. And back then, you could have a job and still fish because we only had 6 tournaments a year. And if you had a good boss or something, he'd let you off. I was lucky. I worked for a trucking company on the loading dock, and they would let me off to fish the tournaments. long as I showed up on Monday morning the next week.
Mhm.
They always,
Yeah,
they tell
that's
us,
important.
you know, don't abuse us. But so, and that was pretty good. You know, and most of the tournaments were Texas, about as far as we went. Kentucky Lake and up to Thousand Island. So they were all within a day, pretty much a day drive of
Mhm.
Virginia. And then by winning that one, I picked up a few sponsors. Jimmy Houston helped me out with Monarch Boats at the time, and I got on with the Frank Carter Company, which had Zebco and Strand and stuff like that. I think they had I think they had Mr. Twister, Strand, and Zebco, and I worked with them and went around the stores helping, you know, keep the baits up. They had Bagley's and just checking on all the local stores, and that helped out. And then,
Yes.
you know, I made a couple classics pretty quick. And that year in '75, if you won, you made it to the classic. And then they stopped it after that for a long time. They just brought it back, you know, about 2007 or 8 or 10, where if you won a tournament, you could go to the classic as long as you fished all of them.
Right.
Oh.
But I got to go to the classic that year, and I got on a plane in Richmond, Virginia. They didn't tell you where you were going or anything else. You could have 10 pounds of tackle and I think it was 6 rod and reels. And we flew to New Orleans, and all the classic contenders met there and stayed at the hotel that night at the Royal Orleans. And Ray Scott had a big seafood dinner there for everybody, and all the writers were there and everything. And we got on a plane the next day and left. And we headed west a little bit, and then we headed north, and we headed east, and before long, nobody knew what direction we was going in. And darn if they didn't land in Virginia Beach, which wasn't but about 45 minutes from Richmond.
Right.
But we went to the Currituck Sound in North Carolina. It was great fishing, but I had never been down there, and I live right here. And that was pretty exciting. And then that was the last year I think they did that. I think it got too costly. You were trying to save some money, but that was pretty good experience. And
Well, they took you halfway around the country before you went home.
exactly.
We have another question from Rob.
Oh, you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. It says, I'm a co-angler on the Bass Opens, getting ready to make the move to boater. Any tips on making the move from co to boater? Is that supposed to be BASS?
All right, now what?
That's fine. Any tips on going from the back of the boat to the front of the boat?
Not a lot of tips, but you're going to be running the trolling motor then, and you know you're going to be making all the decisions. So you want to make sure you're ready to do that.
Mm.
You don't want to just jump in there, and that's why I've always said if you're going to be successful on the bass tour, you got to be able to fish 5 years. You've got to have enough money to support you for 5 years, and that sounds like a long time, and it is. But it's, I mean, in order to learn everything, and because you know you go to Thousand Islands this year, and you go to Lake Norman this year, and you go to Okeechobee. Well, next year you might go to Sam Rayburn and you know 3 or 4 different lakes, and you're fishing shallow lakes, you're fishing deep lakes, you're fishing clear water, you're fishing stained water, you're fishing grass, trees, structure, shallow, river systems, and you got to learn all that stuff, and that's why if you go in the back of the boat for 2 or 3 years, you're going to see all these types of waters and learn. You know, it's just going to help you to learn a lot more.
Yeah.
And you might fish you might pick up a Zoom. I like to mention them because they were one of my main sponsors that I've been with for 20 some years, and they've got great products, which everybody already knows. But they might have let's say you put a fluke on the back of a chatterbait with a straight tail fluke. Well, the guy you're fishing with, he might put a swimming tail on his, a fluke with a swimming fluke, and that can make all the difference in the world. And it's just so many little subtle things too that you have to make changes with and learn. And just watching people fish, you might fish a whopper popper fast, you might fish it slow, you might twitch it. There's a lot of different ways that you can fish it, and you'll learn a lot of that stuff because, like I say, you have a set way of you fishing a worm, and then you get with somebody that does it totally different. They're catching fish. Like a friend of mine, he went up to Champaign last year with a guy, and he was throwing a 1 ounce weight on a brush hog into the grass, and then he was just jerking it like 5 or 6 feet. He said he had a flipping stick, said he'd just jerk it. And he'd go back to the bottom, and he'd jerk it. And he ended up catching like 30 fish that day.
Oh, wow.
Which most people would never do that.
Mm-hmm.
But and you might not you don't want to go out there all day and do it, but if you're not catching fish, that's something else you might want to try for a few minutes. You know see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That adds to what you're doing. You can watch guys how they play fish and land fish and how they run the trolling motor, how they run the trolling motor around docks, and it's just it's a never-ending learning experience.
Sure.
And that's what makes fishing to me so much harder than any other sport. Because if you go out and hit a tennis ball, you hit a baseball or anything like that, you all got to fish over and over and over. But in fishing, things change so much all the time. And
yes,
I mean, you can go in your garage if you fished 30 years, and I guarantee you 85% of the baits in the garage you hadn't used in 15 years, 10 years. They're just hanging there. They're in a box. You don't use them anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And, that's one thing in my career has been based on plastics, basically. And I've caught fish on crankbaits. I've caught them on top water jigs, buzz baits, everything. But 90% of them have come on worms or lizards or brush hogs, something like that, And but there's so many different ways to fish them, different line sizes, different sinker sizes, different hook sizes, and it's just a learning game the whole time you're out there.
Yes.
And no matter how good you think you are, those bass will outsmart you.
More times than not.
I mean, you can look at the best fishermen out there, and they have days just like everybody else does when they don't catch fish, And they're on the water every day. You take a working man, he can only fish on Saturday and Sunday or maybe late in the evening if he's close to water or something. But the guys that are on the tour, they're fishing just about every day.
Correct.
And they can go out there and practice with stuff. Like if something comes out Well, you work Monday through Friday, and you're ready to go fishing, and you know you can catch a few doing this or that. That's what you're gonna do. But if you had more time, you would try and learn these other tactics. I mean, I know a lot of people right now to this very day that won't fish a drop shot, and it catches a ton of fish. And there's times when it'll catch fish when other things won't.
That is true.
But they just won't make themselves learn to do it or learn to fish a jig and pig. A lot of people don't fish them because they don't want to take the time to learn to do it. And all that's important.
It is. Versatility is the name of the game anymore.
Exactly.
There's so many different baits out there, and the fish see so many baits that you it's nice to master, say, the jig and pig, but a lot of places you're not using them anymore. A lot of people going down to Okeechobee are using moving baits more than
Right. But you tell, if you look at most of the tournaments, you'll see the top 5 fishermen a lot of times are fishing different ways.
Correct.
But they're all catching fish. And they figured out how to catch them on the way they're fishing. Or I don't know what they did up there the other day, but like I remember last year, guys were catching them on drop shots, guys were catching them on twos, guys were catching them on Carolina rigs, and the top 5.
Yep.
3 or 4. It's always 3 to 5 patterns, and a lot of times, but on reservoirs and regular lakes and stuff, the top 5, every one of them will be doing something different. But they figured out a way to make that lure work in a certain area or something, or to work for them where the other people didn't figure it out or maybe didn't try it. And so it's a lot of trial and error. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
If you want to learn. When I learned to worm fish, I went to a seminar by John Powell. Roland Martin was there, Bill Dance, Billy Westmoreland, and Tom Mann. And Roland talked about the marina trying to get you to come down there and fish, and Tom Mann, the only thing he talked about was a little lead bait that he had with the treble hook on the Little George, which was the number 1 selling lure in the world because you threw it out, you hung it up, and you had to break it off. A piece of lead with that, and Bill Dance talked about fishing in Cuba. I wasn't ever going over there, and then it got down to John Powell, and he actually put on a nice seminar about worm fishing, and I went up and talked to him afterwards, and he was one of the few people that used a spinning rod. And there wasn't but about 5 of us till the mid-'80s that even had a spinning rod in their boat. And everybody called it Mickey Mouse stuff, but it wasn't. It worked. And I listened to him, and I did what he told me to do. Well, when I would come home, I took a cigar box, put hooks, sinkers, and worms in it. I got my spinning rod, and I'd go fishing with my buddies, and we'd go down and practice for our club tournaments and stuff. Well, I didn't fish nothing but a worm. And they'd catch 20 on a spinner bait, and I'd catch 2 on a worm. Then next one might catch 20 on a crankbait, and I'd catch 3 on a worm. They said, "Man, you need to throw this crankbait." I said, "Well, I know how to throw that. But you need to throw this spinner bait." I said, "I got to learn this worm." And I did, and then I did the same thing with a jig. In Virginia, we didn't even have jig and pig till probably 78, 76. You couldn't even buy one here. Nobody ever heard of them because you didn't have the publicity you got now.
Correct.
You got out to Tennessee and on out that way, that was the number 1 bait back then. And I mean, we didn't even have a spinner bait in Virginia till Bobby Murray won the Classic on it. And then it was hard to get. They filtered in slowly. And but I learned that worm, and the next year we had 12. We had a tournament every month, and I won 10 of the 12 tournaments with that worm in light line, lightweight, and that was kind of my bread and butter fishing through my whole career, was a worm, a lizard, or some kind of plastic. Mostly Texas rigging back in the early days, and then got more to shaky heads the last 10 or 15 years. But then, like you had Denny Breyer, he was a flipper, but he won a couple of tournaments on spinnerbaits too. You know, people overlook that. And
yeah, same thing.
But a lot of them can be versatile. And now these guys, they go to fishing every day, and they're on top of things, and they're on top of new lures and stuff like that. And they just work hard.
Yes.
And
You know,
it's hard now just to take one bait and be successful with it year in, you know, for the whole year.
Yeah, it's difficult because I mean, for one, they're fishing. The pros are fishing so many different types of water, and
Yeah,
you know,
and they're seeing the scenario day in and day out, and if they can remember, you know, most of them can keep it in their head.
yeah,
And when the weather changes or something changes, they know how to make the change right then.
right.
And that just comes with time. And you can't just hire a guide and go out and fish with him and think you know how to fish the next day. They don't work like that, you know. And it takes practice, and but it's not a better sport out there than bass fishing, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong, I love dirt. I go to a lot of dirt races and NASCAR. Follow NASCAR. I like racing, and but I still think our sport's got more things that can go wrong. You know, you got to really. I mean, you're fighting a trolling motor. You're fighting the battery, keeping the batteries charged up. You're fighting rod and reels. You're fighting the line on the rod, the hooks on the thing, and the constant weather changing, rain, sleet, snow, hail, wind, tornadoes. I've seen it all. And, you know, like if that comes in a ball game or something, they just go in the dugout or back in the building and sit there. Or if they're playing basketball or already in a building, they don't have to worry about it. And I mean, you just run down and throw the ball at the hole. Same thing with golfing. I mean, you hit the golf ball, but it's the same repetitious over and over. Where bass fishing not like that. You can't do the same thing every time and catch fish. You got to make a lot of changes, and
that's even true with just the same bait. Sometimes, like if you're throwing a spinner bait, you know, sometimes you just retrieve it straight in, then you know they'll eat it that day. Then maybe an hour later, you have to jerk your rod a little bit just a little more action on it.
Yeah, I mean, you can. A lot of times, there's two people in the boat fishing the same lure, just the size of the line, the type of rod they're using, all of that can make a big difference in the amount of fish you catch. The speed you're reeling it, what speed. You know, a guy might have a 7-2 reel, and you got a 7-2 reel. Well, he might pick up one that's 5-2, and you don't even know it. And his bait's coming a lot slower than yours is, or vice versa. His is coming a lot faster. You know, you don't ever know. I mean, it's always searching and looking and trying different things to make something work.
It is. I do have a question for you. What's the largest, the biggest bass you've caught? You
I
caught?
caught 11-2. I think it was 11-2. I caught an Okeechobee. And
Okay.
I weighed in a 10-4 at Okeechobee in the tournament. And I've caught probably 4, 5, 9-pounders over the years at different places. At Eufaula, Alabama, in a tournament, I had one 9 something. But one of my proudest catches was at trying to think of the name of the place down in Alabama. Shoot. But anyway, it's the one that has all the big smallmouth in it. Is known for smallmouth. And I had to finish. It was the year before I won the class, or the same year I won the classic. I had to finish in the top 75 to make Angler of the Year in the East Division. And I know, so I knew if I finished 75th or better, I couldn't get knocked out of the classic or Angler of the Year because I had like a 76-point lead. And
Nice.
I caught fish in Wilson, I believe it was Wilson, Lake Wilson, Pickwick. We were putting in Pickwick. Well, the last day of practice, I caught about an 8-pound smallmouth and several more big ones in Pickwick, so I decided to stay there. And I came in with 2 pounds, 4 ounces, and I went to like 115th place.
Oh.
And they didn't run water. That was the problem.
Okay.
They had been running water every day in practice, but didn't run water that day. And you couldn't lock through the Wilson. So the next day I locked through the Wilson, and I was back at the launch site at 11 o'clock, tied up to the buoy, and I had 3 7-pound smallmouth and 2 2-pounders. And I had it right at 25 pounds. And that shot me all the way up to number 2 spot that day. And that was the largest comeback anybody had made. And that was right up there with the classic for me, just in days you remember.
Yes.
For fishing tournaments and stuff like that. And I think I could have caught 2 more, probably 5 or 6 pounders if I'd stayed, and I would have won the tournament, but I ended up in 3rd place, I think.
Okay.
But that was an exciting tournament.
Yeah. So you're from Virginia, and there are smallmouth there, but not as plentiful as
most of them are in like the James River. You got to go up
Yeah.
the field pod, and they're just not. I mean, if you was to catch 5 or 6 in a day, you've had a gigantic day.
Okay.
And that you can go in the river and catch a bunch, but most of them are little, pound and a half.
All right. So how did you become such I'll call you a great smallmouth fisherman? Because if you look at some of your wins and your high finishes there, and even your classic was on a smallmouth body of water.
Yeah. Actually, that's most of the tournaments I won on that on the Hudson River. I had smallmouth in the bags, both of those tournaments. But I think when something new came along, I tried to learn it as fast as I could. Just like I tell you, would learn to fish the worm. I just went up to Thousand Island and spent a lot of time just fishing strictly for smallmouth. I knew I could catch largemouth on the shallow, but I wanted to learn smallmouth fishing, and I just what tactics we had back then, mostly was tube fishing. We didn't have drop shotting when we started out, and actually drop shotting didn't come in really till about the year I won the classic, and that's the boy from California that finished second. I know his name like I know my son, but I can't think of it. But he kind of really, him and Aaron Martin kind of introduced the drop shot to. They were doing it out west, but and so that's another thing. When we started fishing and back coming through the years, you had guys that, like I say, that the Carolina rig was used in South Carolina for 30 years before anybody ever heard of it. And what happened, Jimmy Nolan they fished it on that 2-hook worm. There's a little Jack Chancellor had one out, but it was somebody else called a do nothing worm. It had 2 little brim hooks in it with a string leader, and you tied it on, and they fish it on the Carolina rig.
Okay.
Jimmy Nolan got some, and he got over he had fished in South Carolina in the tournament on Santee, and he fished with a board that was Carolina rigged. So he got some of those worms. Well, he lost them. And he got to Sam Rayburn, so he just tied a worm hook on and put a lizard on it. And that's what basically gave Zoom Bait Company their big start. I mean, they were always selling a lot of worms and good worms, but we won that national tournament, Carolina rigged. And
Yeah.
he just happened to tie a worm hook on and Carolina rigged with that lizard. And that jumped out where the general public didn't even hardly know about it for 3 years.
I love that too.
Because like I say, you didn't have the media or anything you got nowadays. Where if you went out there tomorrow and came up with a super duper rig, everybody's gonna know it the next day.
That is true.
But I think with smallmouth, and again, I just enjoyed catching them, and I've had some great days catching. And it was just trying there, and I've fallen behind a little bit on it right now with the live scope and all that because we don't have enough clear water down here to use it hardly, and that's how a lot of the guys are winning and everything. But like I said, I wish they'd do away with that, but I think it's here to stay.
Oh yeah.
Nothing to do about it.
No, money drives the economy. So.
And then, I don't know, just like I say, there's some people say, well, technology's in everything, and it is, but does it have to be? You know what I mean?
Right.
I think you could start a tournament trail where you can only have maybe a GPS and your depth finder, and you could actually do away with GPS as far as I'm concerned too. But the only thing is now we go to so many places where you get lost if you didn't have it. It's like you go to 1,000 Islands or somewhere like that and wind out through all them islands. Takes a long time to learn just how to get from one side to the other.
You'd have to bring the paper map back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just my theory, which ain't worth a whole lot.
Neither are mine, sir. So don't feel bad about that.
The smallmouth, they can move around, and you catch them one day and they're gone.
Yes.
A lot of times, and to me, I just try and look for bait. And I had a friend that did a lot of skin diving up there, and he used to sit on the bottom and feed them crawfish. They'd come up and take it right out of his hand. But he taught me a long time ago, if there wasn't perch down there, you wasn't gonna catch them.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see them on the depth finder, but when those little cameras came out that you drop down, he showed me one day out there in Champaign. He went over this reef, and it was we saw 50 or 60 smallmouth, never saw a perch. And he said, well, let's go over there. And I said, let's fish here. Got all them fish. He said, they ain't going to bite. I said, huh? They may not bite for you, but I'll show you how to make them bite. Well, about 30 minutes later, I said, let's go to the other reef. I ain't had a bite. And we kept moving around, and finally he found the perch and the smallmouth together, and we caught like 30-some fish. And, that, and just things like that. Of course, now if you see them, you have to fish because you don't know if it's perch down there or not a lot of times.
Right.
But I just really love smallmouth fishing, and I could live up there in the summertime.
I'm
too cold for me in the winter.
It's just like in Florida in the summertime. You stay inside.
Yeah, I don't want to be down there in the summer either.
Yeah. But well, I want to say thank you for joining us. We've been at this for a little over an hour now, and it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
That's
yes,
right.
sir. Either fishing or talking. Fishing.
Hey, we should do it again sometime.
Oh, I'd love it. I'd love it. But you take care of yourself. Safe travels up to Champlain, and good luck. I'm sure I'll keep an eye on and watch you win another trophy.
I'm gonna try.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right,
Great
take
show.
care.
Great show.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That was Woo Dave's. I'm kind of a little giddy here because he's, one of my heroes, idols, as far as fishing. I did get a chance to meet him and talk to him and a lot of things and take him out fishing, show him some areas around Cuba Lake. And
I'm surprised you didn't invite him over to hang out before he went up to Champlain or something.
well, I don't want to overstep my bounds. But 60 years.
Yeah.
Wow, 6 decades been fishing.
It's amazing.
Professionally.
Oh, I thought just in general.
No, he's
Oh,
yeah. But
very cool.
thanks everybody for hanging around. I apologize we didn't have any video from. We're going to work on that for the next one, and like he said, he will definitely do it again.
Yeah.
So
That'll be fun.
yes. And we'll make sure it's after Champlain so we can maybe get some tips from them from there. So yeah, everybody, thank you very much. Take care. And our next podcast is Monday, the 5th of July. And we're going to be talking about...
I'll probably be in my sweats because I'm not working that day. So
Right.
See me all in grunge clothes.
Oh, you're not?
Hey.
Oh, we're going to be talking about packing as a co-angler. So, all right, everyone. Well, thank you very much.
You're not going to end it how you usually do?
For listening. And you just threw me off. That's all. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for listening. And if you do plan on getting out, going fishing, always wear your life vest. Be safe. Wear your protection. Sunglasses.
Sunscreen.
And it's funny you mentioned that because every time Xander goes out, when the sun's out, she's like, sun stuff.
Spray.
Gotta have the sun spray.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Our little 3-year-old daughter reminds us to put it on. So good night, everybody. Take care. And
we'll see you on Monday.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night, Bev.